Welcome to the Poetry Center. Glad you guys are here. Thank you. It's a great night. We're really excited about it. And I just have a couple quick housekeeping things to take care of. My name's Tyler Meier. I work here as the director at the Poetry Center. We're very happy to have you. This reading is part of a series that we've been offering this fall and into the spring season about climate change and poetry and where those two things might intersect and how the language we use to think about these complicated environmental problems might create new possibilities, new imaginative possibilities, how we think about it, how we think about the challenges, and how we think about the possibilities. There are many people on campus, many groups on campus that have helped make this reading series possible, and so I just want to quickly thank them. Thanks to the College of Science, thanks to the Agnes Nelms Howry Program in Environment and Social Justice, thanks to the Confluence Center, thanks to the Institute of the Environment, Africana Studies, thanks to the National Endowment for the Arts, and everyone else who supported this. We're glad and thankful for all of that support. My pleasure right now to introduce Sarah Gonzalez, who will come up and tell us a little bit more about our reader tonight, Ross Gay. Sarah is the co-director of Spoken Futures, which among many things also supports and promotes and produces the Tucson Youth Poetry Slam, one of the most exciting poetry things that's happening in Tucson. Thank you for that applause. And there's a slam this Saturday. Is that right? Yeah, okay, good. If you're interested, and Sarah might tell us more about that. She's also an assistant director of outreach and education for the Dean of Students Office, working for the different cultural centers on campus on intersectional work between the different cultural centers here at the U of A. It's my pleasure to welcome Sarah Gonzalez, who will tell us more about Ross.
All right. That's what happens when you bring your students. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it. And thanks for being here. Poetry is not a luxury. And I'm showing this photograph of Ross Gay wearing a shirt with this quote by Audre Lorde on it while he's standing amidst some tall, yellowy flowers. And I know that he is tall because one of my students said excitedly, "I met Ross Gay once in Philly. He's such a great person." And tall, very, like really, really tall. Ross Gay is the author of 3 books, Against Which, Bringing the Shovel Down, and Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. Winner of the 2015 National Book Critics Circle Award and the 2016 Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award. Ross is a founding board member of the Bloomington Community Orchard, a nonprofit, free fruit for all food justice and joy project, which I got to learn a bit more about earlier during dinner. Ross Gay poems remind to open our eyes to the nature and everything. Reminds us that nature is reverberating in the dirt under our fingernails, and also the reverberations of nature are constantly holding our precarious parts together. If you read his poems, you will expand belief. Bodies become flutes sometimes, become horses sometimes, and I'm over here wishing I too could feel that exact moment when he shifts from this to that. My favorite poem being Sharing with the Ants, as our indigeneity here holds Las Hormigas very sacred. And what a joyous way to be with the ants, slurping figs together. I love the easy, the everyday in Ross Gay, the way I learned more about plants in a single essay of his than I did in any biology class. The way I learned that sunchokes are sometimes called fartichokes. And now I know why my favorite soup has some consequences. But we use parsnips now. And now I know, or rather, I respect where the sunchoke comes from. It's like getting it in the market that somehow kind of erases the full story. And now I know that the photo where he's wearing the Audre Lorde quote, well, those must be sunchokes in the background with their tall, yellowy flowers. Is that true? Yes! I had this epiphany. I was like, oh my God, I just identified a flower. All right. I know all this from a Ross Gay essay. I will say I only knew of him after I read A Small Needful Fact, and then I began reading backwards through all of his works. And that poem is a piece that sticks to me, as it should to all of us. And of all of the words used on Mr. Eric Garner after his murder, he deserved at least that poem, that humanization of him. And so In the desperate few hours before history shifts again, there is no place I would rather be than here, now, sharing space with Ross Gay, with my friends, with my students, and with many of my family. So I hope that we all hold that poetry is not a luxury, and I thank you for being here. Bienvenidos a Tucson.
Thank you very much for that. They're sunshokes. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's good to be here. I really feel lucky to be here as part of this. And I'm going to read you poems. I think the way that I'm going to read, there's going to be a kind of, sort of, hey, so it's cold out, chilly, so with consent, I think we should be closer. Just like if you're cold, lean into your neighbor, if it's okay. I'm sort of interested in the ways that we all collaborate sort of unwittingly, invisibly, keep each other warm. I'm going to start with the poem that you mentioned, Sharing with the Ants. And what I was going to say, I think I probably interrupted myself, as I do sometimes. This reading will probably make some kind of a argument is too strong of a word, but a sort of notion of a relationship between the lyric or the poetic and the ecological. Sharing with the Ants. A euphemism for some yank and gobble, no doubt, some yummy tumble or other like monkey spanking or hiding the salami. Of course your mind goes there. Me too, me too. You have a favorite? Don't lie, I've heard you say them. Tending the hive, eating the melon. How's the tunnel traffic? Or as a massage therapist would say to my pal when his loneliness dragged him to a carpeted room in an apartment building in Chinatown where the small hands lathered his body, open the door. Naturally sharing with the ants, some entomologic metaphor, the chronic yoke in lovemaking, not only of body to body, but life to death. Sharing with the ants. Or the specific act of dragging with the tongue one sweat-gilded body from the tibia's lookout along the rope bridge of the Achilles, marching across the long plains of the calf and the meticulously unnamed zone behind the knee over the hamstring, and to use your imagination for Christ's sakes, but I will tell you it is dark there and sweet. Sharing with the ants. But that's not at all what I'm talking about. I actually am talking about Sharing with the Ants, which I did September 21st, a Friday in 2012, when by fluke or whim or prayer, I jostled the crotch-high fig tree whose few fruit had been scooped by our fat friends the squirrels, but found shriveled and purple into an almost testicular papoose. Who knows what a fig looks like? Into an almost testicular papoose, smuggled beneath the fronds of a few leaves, one stalwart fruit, which I immediately bit in half, only to find a small platoon of ants twisting in the meat. And when I spit out my bite, another 4 or 5 lay sacked out, their spindly legs pedaling slow, nothing. One barely looking at me through a half-open eye, the way an infant might, curled into its mother's breast. And one stumbled, dazed through my beard, tickling me as it tumbled head over feet, back into the bite in my hand. The hooked sabers of their mandibles made soft, kneading the flesh, their claws heavy and slow with fruit, their armor slathered plush as the seeds shone above, the sounds of their work like water slapping appear at night. And not one to disrupt an orgy, I mostly gobbled around their nuzzle and slurp, careful not to chomp a reveler. And nibbling one last thread of flesh, I noticed a dozy ant nibbling the same toward me, its antenna just caressing my face, its pincers slowing at my lips, both of our mouths sugared and shining, both of us twirling beneath the fig's seeds, spinning like a newly discovered galaxy that's been there forever. So for the young writers here, that's a poem about fucking an insect, which is the worthy subject of poems. And ecological to boot. This is called To the Mulberry Tree. Are mulberries around here? Do they grow? Okay, yeah. Where I'm from, up in Pennsylvania, that's like one of our fruit, and they're everywhere, and they're really prolific. I'm going to tell you before I start this poem too. I made the mistake of reading this poem to a group of like little kids. To the mulberry tree. Everyone knows it's good luck, if inconvenient, when a bird shits on you. But even more so, good luck if the bird shits on you when you're plucking gold currant tomatoes sweet enough to make your bare feet lift just so off the ground, and the beetles beneath scurry and giggle, and as I move to gobble one, mouth agape and swooped in a grin at once, the shit slurries half in and half on my sun-warmed chin, which, forgive me, jiggles me from my reverie, for I am only human. Swiping the slurp of turd from my mouth to see it is mostly purple, the goop seedy and gelatinous. And when I see the bird pitching its swill from the branch above, I know that yes, this shit is mostly berry from that most prolific of trees, which some numbskulls call a weed because it's so prolific and not, they say, particularly useful. These same some call insipid the mulberry's flavor, which I think means tasteless or bland. But given I detect swirled in the shit the sweet of the thing, insipid doesn't fit the bill, but rather most likely describes the sex life of the describer. But why should I get personal, defending a tree's honor? Mostly, I'm happy the birds feast on the topmost branches of these tall trees and leave be, for the time being, my blueberries, and soon blackberries and grapes, and these little tomatoes. Though to be sure, it is a certain glee as spring gasps into summer, and the lowest branches shimmer with their simple booty, which I must jump for, and sometimes high, which I will not probably always be able to do. For jumping and grabbing at once like this, a soft thing is hard. Be gentle, she said, emerging from the dugout beneath the mulberry tree, where the big kids gathered, and we mostly rode our bikes by fast, so as not to be snatched to the ground and pummeled, or worse, for they were teenagers. But I knew this early July morning they would be nowhere to be found, and the tree would be burdened with a crop begging to be loosed on my ice cream. She wiped her eyes and yawned and put on glasses, and there was in her hair a little sprig of grass, and she was barefoot, laughing and filling with me slowly my bucket, eating a few when it was full, giggling at the small burst of juice one made on her chin. And behind her, beneath the tree, there was a filthy blanket and a pack of cigarettes and tinfoil wrappers crumpled and shimmering and the frayed remnants of a rope. And seeing me seen into the terrible future, she put softly one hand on my chin and the other in my hair, turning my head away from what wreckage waited in there, and back into the leaves, which too I will do to you, so that none of us will ever die terribly, but stay always like this, lips and fingers blushed purple, the faint sugar ghosting our mouths beneath the tree inside me, which is now the same tree inside you. All of us snugged in the canopy on our tippy toes, gathering fruit for good. I'm going to read you. I've been writing these essays, and I'm calling them delights. And I'm going to read you one of these. This is called Transplanting. Today I have smuggled 3 fig cuttings onto a flight. They're essayettes. Someone named them essayettes. Little essays. Today I have smuggled 3 fig cuttings onto a flight from Philadelphia to Detroit. Truth be told, no smuggling has occurred given as I was carrying the things open and notorious in a plastic bag. The roots were themselves in a plastic bag stuck into some moist compost and leaves. But smuggling makes the act feel a bit more thrilling than what it seems, carrying a few sticks in a bag, and therefore more like what it is, cloning a living creature for replanting about 700 miles away. Which you might have already gone there, given as I've told you already, it's a fig tree, is another way of saying I'm carrying joy around in my bag. Actually, right now it's in the overhead compartment in that plastic bag, probably a little funky with my dirty clothes. This is one of those delights that keeps piling up. Given as the fig tree I took these cuttings from, don't forget the living things in my plastic bag up top, which is firmly established and easily my height in my partner's mother's backyard in Frenchtown, New Jersey, is from a grove of figs a bit further down the Delaware in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, where my dear friend Jay's family lived, and where his father grew a wonderful garden, including bitter melon, Asian pears, peaches, anchoy, and, yes, these figs. When I first asked if I could transplant some of his figs, he was moving, and I was heartbroken that that garden would no longer be a sanctuary to me. He said yes, if he even said that, walked me out to the grove of figs beneath his massive chestnut tree, and he picked up a pickaxe and started hacking at the thing. I was a little terrified, green thumb that I was. 2 ancillary delights. I have these long parentheticals in these essays. 2 ancillary delights. Mr. Lau, old school, OG, actually got a turtle, put a little hole in the turtle's shell, tied a string to a nut about the hole size, which he then dropped into that hole, tying the other end of the string to a stick in the middle of his lettuces so that he could have a steady, if coerced, slug patrol. That's not the delight. The delight is that his son, my pal Jay, under cover of night, dislodged the nut from the shell, carried the critter on his bike, one-handed, no helmet, to a nearby tributary of Neshaminy Creek, the Little Things River Jordan. Ancillary delight, too, perhaps with a twinge of irony, when people say they have a black thumb, meaning they can't grow anything. I say, Then we stuck the cuttings in a bucket full of water, and he did in fact tell me not to let them dry out. Yesterday, when I dug these ones up, I used a shovel and hacked at the roots like Mr. Lau, though I was sending soothing mind beams to the tree as I did so, which I'm guessing Mr. Lau was not. Reference aforementioned turtletail. After I got a few good cuttings, I like shoots that are connected to a larger, well-rooted piece of wood. I took them to the bucket near the house, filled it up, dropped them in to the bucket near the hose, filled it up, dropped them in, and showered and dressed for the funeral of a beloved 20-year-old child named Rachel who fell to her death a few nights ago. When my partner told me over the phone about Rachel's death, she said while we were talking that 2 butterflies alighted on the butterfly bush we had just planted. When we were standing in the back corner of the funeral home during the eulogies, I moved there because I'm tall and called Stephanie over so we could listen together. Stephanie caught sight of a little silver gleaming thing on the ground. When the eulogy was over, she picked it up, a single elephant earring. Elephants were Rachel's favorite animal. She adored them. When we got home, after the pizza and guacamole, my guacamole, a delight. Another delight, here's the recipe: avocado, onion, garlic, salt. That's it, really. I grabbed the bucket, trimmed the little trees into sticks, potted them in the plastic bags, and set them on the counter where they sat there like promises, little converters, little dreamers of coming back into bloom, and how we might carry that with us wherever we go. Okay, a lot of figs tonight. This is, I tricked you. I'm going to do that in a minute. This is, you know what, this is called, I don't read this poem out loud too often. I don't know why. It's called Becoming a Horse. This is about the first horse that I met, really met, became friends with. Becoming a horse. It was dragging my hands along its belly, loosing the bit and wiping the spit from its mouth made me a snatch of grass in the thing's maw, a fly tasting its ear. It was touching my nose to its made me know the clover's bloom. My wet eye to his made me know the long field secrets. But it was putting my heart to the horses that made me know the sorrow of horses, the sorrow of a brook creasing a field, the maggot turning in its corpse, made me forsake my thumbs for the sheen of unshod hooves, and in this way drop my torches, and in this way drop my knives, and feel the small song in my chest swell, and my coat glisten and twitch, and my face grow long, and these words cast off, at last, for the slow, honest tongue of horses. Thank you. This is called To the Fig Tree on 9th and Christian. And this is in Philadelphia. It's a Philadelphia poem. Tumbling through the city in my mind without once looking up, the racket in the lugwork probably rehearsing some stupid thing I said or did, some crime or other. The city, they say, is a lonely place until, yes, the sound of sweeping. And a woman, yes, with a broom, beneath which you are now too, the canopy of a fig, its arms pulling the September sun to it, and she has a hose too, and so works hard, rinsing and scrubbing the walk, lest some poor sod slip on the silk of a fig and break his hip, and not probably reach over to gobble up the perpetrator. The light catches the veins in her hands when I ask about the tree. They flutter in the air, and she says, "Take as much as you can, please help me." So I load my pockets and mouth, and she points to the stepladder against the wall to mean more, but I was without a sack, so my meager plunder would have to suffice. And an old woman whom gravity was pulling into the earth loosed one from a low-slung branch, and its eye wept like hers, which she dabbed with a kerchief as she cleaved the fig with what remained of her teeth. And soon there were 8 or 9 people gathered beneath the tree, pointing, looking into it like a constellation. Do you see it? And I am tall, and so good for these things. And a bald man even told me so when I grabbed 3 or 4 for him, reaching into the giddy throngs of yellow jackets, sugar stone, which he only pointed to, smiling and rubbing his stomach. I mean, he was really rubbing his stomach. Like there was a baby in there. It was hot. His head shone while he offered recipes to the group using words which I couldn't understand. And besides, I was a little tipsy on the dance of the velvety heart rolling in my mouth, pulling me down and down into the oldest countries of my body, where I ate my first fig from the hand of a man who escaped his country by swimming through the night, and maybe never said more than 5 words to me at once, but gave me figs. And a man on his way to work hops twice to reach at last his fig, which he smiles at and calls baby. "Come here, baby," he says, and blows a kiss to the tree, which everyone knows cannot grow this far north, being Mediterranean and favoring the rocky, sun-baked soils of Jordan and Sicily. But no one told the fig tree or the immigrants. There was a way the fig tree grows in groves. It wants, it seems, to hold us. Yes, I am anthropomorphizing, goddammit. I have twice in the last 30 seconds rubbed my sweaty forearm into someone else's sweaty shoulder, gleeful, eating out of each other's hands on Christian Street in Philadelphia, a city like most which has murdered its own people. This is true. We are feeding each other from a tree at the corner of Christian and 9th, strangers maybe never again. And I'm going to read you one more poem. It's called Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. It takes 10 minutes to read, which means it takes 10 minutes for you to hear it. So if you need to shift. There's two things about this poem that I want to tell you. One is that part of it, it starts in a dream, but then the second part, it goes to this community orchard in Bloomington called the Bloomington Community Orchard, which is this sort of experiment in neighborliness, an experiment in caring for people you may not know. There's 100 trees, there's 100 or more fruit bushes, there's all kinds of complementary plants, but there's this place where we have decided to try to figure out how to grow food for each other and to have this sort of conversations about growing food, which are really conversations about taking care of each other. That's in Bloomington. Come, please come. And the other thing is that there's this kid who was not yet a kid in this poem named Ara Lee. Ara Lee was the idea of a kid, and now Ara Lee is like a three and a half year old kid. Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. I'm very glad to be here. Feels lucky to do this today. Friends, will you bear with me today? For I have awakened from a dream in which a robin made with its shabby wings a kind of veil, behind which it shimmied and stomped something from the south of Spain, its breast aflare, looking me dead in the eye from the branch that grew into my window, coochie-cooing my chin. The bird shuffling its little talons left, then right, while the leaves bristled against the plaster wall, two of them drifting onto my blanket while the bird opened and closed its wings like a matador giving up on murder, jutting its beak, turning a circle and flashing again the ruddy bombast of its breast, by which I knew upon waking it was telling me in no uncertain terms to bellow forth the tubas and sousaphones, the whole rusty brass band of gratitude not quite dormant in my belly. It said so in a human voice. Bellow forth! And who among us could ignore such odd and precise counsel? Hear ye, I am here to holler that I have hauled tons, by which I don't mean lots, I mean tons of cow shit, and stood ankle deep in swales of maggots swirling the spent beer grains the brewery man was good enough to dump off, holding his nose, for they smell very bad, but make the compost writhe giddy and lick its lips, twirling dung with my pitchfork again and again with hundreds and hundreds of other people. We dreamt an orchard this way, furrowing our brows and hauling our wheelbarrows and sweating through our shirts. And less than a year later, there was a party at which trees were sunk into the well-fed earth, one of which, a Liberty apple, after being watered in, was tamped by a baby barefoot with a bow hanging in her hair, biting her lip in her joyous work. And friends, this is the realest place I know. It makes me squirm like a worm. I am so grateful. You could ride your bike there or roller skate or catch the bus. There is a fence and a gate twisted by hand. There is a fig tree taller than you in Indiana. It will make you gasp. It might make you want to stay alive even. Thank you. And thank you for not taking my pal when the engine of his mind dragged him to swig fistfuls of Xanax and a bottle or two of booze. And thank you for taking my father a few years after his own father went down. Thank you, Mercy. Mercy, thank you for not smoking meth with your mother. Oh, thank you. Thank you for leaving and for coming back. And thank you for what inside my friend's love bursts like a throng of roadside goldenrod gleaming into the world, likely hauling a shovel with her like one named Ara Lee ought, with hands big as a horse's, and who, like one named airily ought, will laugh time to time till the juice runs from her nose. Oh, thank you for the way a small thing's wail makes the milk, or what once was milk in us, gather into horses huckle-buckling across a field. And thank you, friends, when last spring the hyacinth bells rang, and the crocuses flaunted their upturned skirts, and a quiet roved the beehive, which when I entered were snugged 2 or 3 dead, fist-sized clutches of bees between the frames, almost clinging to one another. This one's tiny head pushed into another's tiny wing, one's forelegs resting on another's face, the translucent paper of their wings fluttering beneath my breath, and when a few dropped to the frames beneath, honey. And after falling down to cry, everything's glacial shine. And thank you, too. And thanks for the corduroy couch I have put you on. Put your feet up. Here's a light blanket. That would be really nice today. Here's a light blanket. A pillow, dear ones, for I think this is going to be long. I can't stop my gratitude, which includes, dear reader, you, for staying here with me, for moving your lips just so as I speak. Here is a cup of tea. I've spooned honey into it. And thank you, the tiny bee's shadow perusing these words as I write them, and the way my love talks quietly when in the hive. So quietly, in fact, you cannot hear her, but only notice barely her lips moving in conversation. Thank you, what does not scare her in me, but makes her reach my way. Thank you, the love she is, which hurts sometimes, and the time she misremembered elephants in one of my poems, which, oh, here they come, garlanded with morning glory and wisteria blooms, trombones all the way down to the river. Thank you, the quiet in which the river bends around the elephant's solemn trunk, polishing stones, floating on its gentle back, the flock of geese flying overhead. And to the quick and gentle flocking of men, to the old lady falling down on the corner of Fairmount and 18th, holding patiently with the softest parts of their hands her cane and purple hat, gathering for her the contents of her purse and touching her shoulder and elbow. And thank you, too, the cockeyed basketball court, on which in a half-court 3-on-3, we old heads made of some runny-nosed kids a shambles. And the 61-year-old, after flipping a reverse layup off a backdoor cut from my no-look pass to seal the game, ripped off his shirt and threw punches at the gods and hollered at the kids to admire the pacemaker's scar grinning across his chest. Thank you, the glad accordion's wheeze in the chest. Thank you, the bagpipes. Thank you to the woman barefoot in a gaudy dress for stopping her car in the middle of the road, and the tractor trailer behind her, and the van behind it, whisking a turtle off the road. Thank you, God of gaudy. Thank you, paisley panties. Thank you, the organ up my dress. Thank you, the sheer dress you wore kneeling in my dream at the creek's edge and the light swimming through it. The coy kissing halos into the glassy air. The room in my mind with the blinds drawn where we nearly injure each other, crawling into the shawl of the other's body. Oh, thank you, when I just say it plain, we fuck each other dumb. And you, again you, for the true kindness it has been for you to remain awake with me like this, nodding time to time, and making that noise which I take to mean yes, or I understand, or please go on, but not too long, or why are you spitting so much, or easy, tiger, hands to yourself. I'm excitable. I'm sorry. I'm grateful. I just want us to be friends now, forever. Take this bowl of blackberries from the garden. The sun has made them warm. I picked them just for you. I promise I will try to stay on my side of the couch. And thank you, the baggie of dreadlocks I found in a drawer while washing and folding the clothes of our murdered friend. The photo in which his arm slung around the sign to the Trail of Silences. Thank you, the way before he died, he held his hands open to us, for coming back in a waft of incense or in the shape of a boy in another city looking from between his mother's legs, or disappearing into the stacks after brushing by, for moseying back in dreams where, seeing us lost and scared, he put his hand on our shoulders and pointed us to the temple across town. And thank you to the man all night long, hosing a mist on his early bloomed peach tree so that the hard frost not waste the crop. The ice in his beard and the ghosts lifting from him when the warming sun told him, sleep now. Thank you, the ancestor who loved you before she knew you by smuggling seeds into her braid for the long journey. Who loved you before he knew you by putting a walnut tree in the ground, who loved you before she knew you by not slaughtering the land. Thank you, who did not bulldoze the ancient grove of dates and olives, who sailed his keys into the ocean and walked softly home, who did not fire, who did not plunge the head into the toilet, who said, stop, don't do that, who lifted some broken someone up, who volunteered the way a plant birthed of the reseeding plant is called a volunteer. Like the plum tree that marched beside the raised bed in my garden, like the arugula that marched itself between the blueberries, nary a bayonet, nary an army, nary a nation, which usage of the word volunteer familiar to gardeners the wide world made my pal shout, oh, and dance and plunge his knuckles into the lush soil before gobbling 2 strawberries and digging a song from his guitar made of wood from a tree someone maybe planted. Thank you. Thank you, Zydia and Gooseberry, Rebecca and Pawpaw, Ashmead's Kernel, Coxcomb and Scarlet Runner, Feverfew and Lemon Balm. Thank you, Knitbone and Sweetgrass and Sunchoke and False Indigo, whose petals stammered apart by bumblebees. Good Lord. Please give me a minute. And Moonglow and Catkin and Crookneck and Painted Tongue and Seed Pod and Johnny Jump Up. Thank you, what in us rackets glad, what glad rackets us. And thank you to this knuckle-headed heart, this pelican heart, this gap-toothed heart flinging open its gaudy maw to the sky. Oh clumsy, oh bumblefucked, oh giddy, oh dumbstruck, oh rickshaw, oh goat twisting its head at me from my peach tree's highest branch, balanced impossibly, gobbling the last fruit, its tongue working like an engine, a lone sweet drop tumbling by some miracle into my mouth like the smell of someone I've loved. Heart like an elephant screaming at the bones of its dead. Heart like the lady on the bus dressed head to toe in gold, the sun shivering her shiny boots, singing Erykah Badu to herself, leaning her head against the window. And thank you, the way my father one time came back in a dream by plucking the 2 cables beneath my chin like a bass fiddle strings and played me until I woke singing. No kidding, I was smiling and singing, thank you. Thank you, stumbling into the garden where the Juneberry's flowers had burst open like the bells of French horns. The lily my mom and I planted oozed into the air. The bazillion ants labored in their earthen workshops below. Collard greens waved in the wind like the sails of ships, and the wasps swam in the mint bloom's viscous swill. And you, again, you, friends, for hanging tight. I know I can be long-winded sometimes. I just want so badly to rub the sponge of gratitude over everything, including you, which is awkward. Yes. The little suds going down your collar, behind your glasses. Soon it will be over, which is precisely what the child in my dream said, holding my hand, pointing at the roiling sea and the sky hurtling our way like so many buffalo, who said, it's much worse than we think, and sooner. To whom I said, no duh, child in my dreams. What do you think this singing and shuddering is? What this screaming and reaching and dancing and crying is, other than loving what every second goes away? Goodbye, I mean to say. And thank you every day. Thank you.
All right, so let's do a Q&A. If you've got a question, please raise your hand and I will come to you with this microphone. I'll give you a second.
First of all, thank you. Well, I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. I want to say thank you. I had a good friend commit suicide Friday night, and my cat died a week before that. And we all know what's happening tomorrow, so fuck that. So I think you could have saved my life. So I just want to say thanks. And my name's Kim, and I mean it. I'm a writer, and I always say that if I touch one person's life and make one person in this whole world feel better, then I did my job. And you did that for me tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
It's not a poetry question, but thank you so much for that reading. Could you talk about the community orchard and just how it got started and how it carries on? It sounds so wonderful.
Yeah, it's so a woman named Amy Countryman. It was like an undergraduate project, and she was doing research on food sovereignty and food security, and she wanted to find out precisely like what the percentage of food producing trees there were in Bloomington's urban canopy, the trees managed by the city, and it was very low, probably less than 1%. So she was thinking about, how do we feed ourselves? And, so she sort of proposed an urban orchard, community orchard. And that's community orchards are not unfamiliar historically, et cetera. But anyway, she wrote about that. And she had an advisor who knew the forester at the city. So the advisor said, well, propose this to the forester. The forester said, well, if you can get big support, we'll let you have an acre, and he'll give you a little seed money. So she had a call-out meeting, and it was like a room like this, full like this, because that's Bloomington, and that's kind of how Bloomington is. And, then we started to imagine what it takes. We didn't know how to do this. We started to imagine what it takes to make an orchard. All kinds of expertise, all the levels of expertise, some of which was just like me. I could dig good and move a wheelbarrow real good. And other people were botanists and stuff, So we broke into teams, and we started working on the site, and we started working on plant selection, and we started doing all this stuff. But the thing that's fascinating to me, and we planted an orchard in 6-8 months, something like that. But the thing that's fascinating to me are the sort of real, profound questions, conversations we had about community, And to me, I think I mentioned this over dinner, but to me, the biggest question, when you make a thing and you make a thing that takes all kinds of work and stuff like that, you're constantly trying to figure out who is your community. That's the question of this orchard. Who's our community? The community is the whole community. But it's always, it's very easy to neglect, to sort of be blind. That we have blind spots, but we're trying to imagine this big, totally inclusive notion of community, doing the hard work of that, and we stumble, But among the questions that we had and the conversations we had that to me is so moving, it's do we put a lock on the gate of the orchard? I mean, it's thousands of hours to make this thing, thousands of hours. And some people are afraid. People are gonna rip up the trees or something. These are profound questions about our community, about how we're gonna be neighbors. So there's not a lock on the orchard, And that's, to me, some of the sort of questions that, That's one of the big questions that we had as a project, as a community. So it's a study in community. The orchard continues on. Now the trees are getting to like their sort of productive, some of them get into their productive years. There's a board. There's tons of volunteers. When we started, there was like a little cohort of volunteers. Now there's tons and tons of volunteers. We're really tapped into the university and some of the faith organizations in town. And we have 10 classes a year. We have all kinds of festivals on the site. Some people have things on site, can use the site for other things. But it's a park, so you can go there anytime you want. So when I say if you're driving through Indiana, or if you have a designation to Indiana, like Indiana designation, you can go to the Bloomington Community Orchard. And if you go there in the summer, you can go pick some fruit, Does that answer your question? That's what it is. There's a really good website, too, bloomingtoncommunityorchard.org. Yeah.
Can I ask you about, I'll say I'll look through this light. About if you feel like you had like an aha moment with orienting towards gratitude, or if it's something that you learned really early in life, or if there was a process, if it was a big, this is a hard world that we're in.
Yeah.
And how did you orient in the way that you did, or become who you are?
Yeah. I don't actually know the answer to that question. I know that in my second book, toward the end of the book, I started writing these odes that I liked writing more than the other things I was writing. And I liked because of what they were doing for my heart. I realized that there are many engines at play in making a poem, and some of the engines are these sort of critical engines, and some of the engines are like engines of love. And I sort of realized that foregrounding the engines of love makes me happy. I love that. There's critical love as well, and that's sort of one of the questions of how to sort of do that or manage that, make poems out of that. So that's a kind of a thing. The other thing is that I sort of was reading a lot of poems by my friends, contemporary poems and stuff like that, and younger writers, and I was thinking, literally, I was at a reading and then I was working out afterwards, and I was like, someone needs to write a catalog of unabashed gratitude. And then so I was like, I guess I'll do it.
That works. We probably got time for one or two more.
Hi, I just have a quick follow-up. What do you mean by critical love versus your engine love?
Yeah, love that when it is sort of trying to, a love that understands a kind of that we live in sort of, not hard to imagine, that we live in sort of troubled, amidst troubles, and that corrects and imagines, that's sort of a visionary love that imagines as much as it sort of destroys, or more, maybe more than destroys. So that critique is implied in the sort of vision, So the world that I want to live in, implied is a kind of critique, I think, but it's not critique that ends at critique. It's critique that generates the life that I can live, So that's something like that, critical love, yeah.
Could you tell us a little about how you became a writer? And it's pretty evident that you get a lot of your inspiration from the places around you, but are there any people that inspire you when you write?
Yeah, there's tons of like poets and writers that are in my work. Like, I will time to time like look at a poem and I'll be like, wait, I completely stole that thing from so-and-so. Like I know a lot of them that I've stolen from because I'm proud to do that. I love to do that. But then sometimes like I'll realize, I had been carrying around so-and-so's pocket for like a poem in my pocket for 2 months, and no wonder that looks like a Mary Ruefle poem, or whoever else. So other poets and other writers are really important to me. My friends, like this sort of things that I see in the world, like endlessly inspired by interactions. There's a guy I saw was walking to an Ethiopian restaurant today, and there was a guy, you know, skating in like, first I saw from afar, and I could tell someone was kind of skating. I was like, I hope those are roller skates, you know? Because you don't see roller skates all the time anymore, you know? Sure enough, not only were they roller skates, they were like half purple and half pink roller skates. That person is going to show up in something that I write, you know? That was a gift. And that person roller skated as I went by and saw where the person had roller skated. They roller skated over this, this thing that said, what did it say? It said, repent, fear God. I love that this beautiful dude was like cleaning that surface by skating over it, you know? Like erasing it just a little bit, you know? Yeah. So that's to say yes, all the time. Yeah.
We'll do one last question, and
Okay.
there'll be time for more one-on-one.
Okay.
Oh, I mostly just wanted to point out, like, you're attending to so much stuff, and say you have your orchard, and people could drive by and not know about it, but by attending to it, you're bringing energy into the world. And I don't know if, probably a lot of people don't know that the University of Arizona is also an arboretum.
Oh, cool.
And they planted, you know, different trees and things, and you can go online and go on a tour, and there's some pretty nice big trees too.
You said fig trees? Oh, really? Yeah. Do they ripen in September here too, ish? August, September? Earlier? Earlier, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like part of the thing, right? Like, among the jobs that I have as a writer, among the jobs that I have that I love is that I get to sing about shit that I love. Like you just did a thing, you know? It's like, how beautiful is that, you know?
Super beautiful, and thank you. Yeah.